So today is December 5th, 2019. We're going to be talking about emotional resilience and growth. My name is Dr. Aaron Rossi. Okay, we're here at Rossi Chiropractic Center. Okay? You guys are welcome to ask me questions as we go. Not too many questions. I have the right to cut you guys out. All right, so here we go. Now, the way I like to start my talks when we're talking about anything related to health is I want to give you guys a touch of my own philosophy when it comes to your health. Okay, so this is the framework we're going to build from. So there are three things in broad sense that contribute to you being healthy, contribute to you being able to overcome any challenges and live a good and healthy life. Okay, so the three things that contribute to your health are your nourishment, and that's obviously a broad category. It's anything from the environment that you bring in, like your air, your sunlight, your food, your water, anything you bring in. That's nourishment. There's stimulation, which is exercise and learning and laughter and company and movement, all kinds of going action. Okay. Then there is recovery, and that is of course sleep, but also being awake and resting. So those three things: nourishment, stimulation, and recovery are the things that contribute to your health. You got to have them in the right proportions, the right variety, right amount, all that stuff. Okay. Now, what health means, what health practically means, I break that down into three things as well. Okay. So the first thing that health is, to me, is your durability. Now, durability means like how much of a hit can you take and not get bent out of shape, right? So how much physical stress can a bone take before it breaks? How much emotional stress can someone take before you get depressed or really angry or bothered or really off your center? You know, there's durability. Okay, that's how much you can resist a force. Right? After durability, there's resilience, which is once you get bent out of shape, how well, how quickly, how completely can you get back into shape? If you get knocked down, how long does it take you to get back up? If you are depressed, how long will it take you to become functional again? If you're angry, how long does it take you to regain your center again? Okay, that's resilience. Also, if a bone is broken, how long does it take for that bone to heal? Resilience. Okay. Now, the third factor has to follow resilience. It's growth. Okay. Now, what growth means is you get better. You step forward. You are not the same as you were. Resilience brings you back to the start. Growth moves you forward from there. Now, here's a short story to illustrate this. Some years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I was playing outside in my backyard with my kids. And I had a hammock strung from tree to tree, and we're running, and I'm playing tag, and I hop over this hammock several times. I cleared the hammock many a time, but the last jump, I didn't. One foot got caught, down I went, and I landed on the ground on my side with my arm underneath me, and I broke my own rib on my side, bang, and I hit the ground. I'm like, oh, that wasn't right. Oh, no, that wasn't good, right? Now, I'm a chiropractor. I use my body. I'm around, moving, doing things, right? So it's really painful to try to adjust people with broken ribs. So the rib cost me something. Now, here's the thing. It was a sixth rib down on the left side, okay? So it hurt. I exceeded my durability and the rib broke. And after some time, it took 3.5 weeks. And the rib was healed, and I was able to do whatever I needed to do again. But here's a little magical secret about breaks. When you break a bone and it heals back, the site of the break heals back stronger. The bone is denser, it's more well organized than the original. So the neighboring bone is actually a touch weaker. Not that it's weak, it's still just as strong as it should be, but the broken site that's now bended is actually stronger. So I just told you my sixth rib down on the left is one I broke and is healed. So now why don't you take a guess? Which rib in my body is the strongest rib in my body? The sixth one down on the left. That's right. That's the strongest rib in my body because of its trauma. Now, this is an obvious analogy for what we're about to talk about here. We're talking about emotional resilience and growth, right? We go through crap and we survive it and we get stronger for it, sometimes. Okay? So how can we make that sometimes be most of the time? Okay? Well, here's some tools to make that happen. What I want you to get out of this class is exactly that. Tools and a pathway to grow, to be stronger, to be closer and closer to the person that you strive to be, right? So I want to give you tools, okay? And there'll be a variety of them. Now, how many of you have ever heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder? Everyone in the audience, the vast audience, everyone at home probably has heard of this as well too, okay? PTSD. It's very, very well known, but interestingly, it's actually very, very rare. It's very rare. Very. Have you guys ever heard of PTG? You have, no, you haven't. You've heard of it. PTG, post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is very, very common. Very, very, very common. As in everyone experiences it in their life. Many times. We all do. It's how we gain character. It's how we grow as a human being. It's very common, but it's not as well known. It's this underappreciated thing. Okay? So we're going to talk about maximizing that. All right? Now, we're going to talk about 5 different categories of things, the tools in our toolbox, okay? Now, the first of our tool set here is our movement. Now, in my own philosophy when it comes to a human body and health too, our minds and our bodies and our hearts and our souls and our, like who we are completely intertwined. Our Western way of thinking and our modern way of thinking, we'll kind of think of like the body as a machine and the mind as the computer that runs it, and you can almost think that they're, what?
We keep dividing and analyzing
Right.
and separating ourselves.
We make divisions. Think about our medical specialists. We've got specialists for the eyes and the iris and the sclera. You know, those are just parts of the eyeball, right? We've got specialists for all kinds of things. And we divide and break up our body in our Western way of thinking of things. And that also is not accurate. It's not a good analogy. The analogy leads us astray. We are not a machine with a separate computer that has interchangeable things, not at all. Our evolution, embryologically, from babies up to where we are now, as well as our evolution genetically, has never been that way. We are holistic, complete, contained, together. Our bodies and our minds grow together, have evolved together. So that means doing things with your body directly affects your mind. Doing things with your mind affects your body. But it's a two-way street. So you can do bad stuff with your body and you will affect your mind and your emotions. You can do great stuff with your body and you will affect your mind and your emotions. Got me? So use it right. Okay, now here's the thing. If I put up to you a picture of 2 politicians that ran an election against each other, and one of them won, one of them lost, okay? And you had no idea who these people were, never saw them before, and I slapped a picture up there and I asked you, who won? And I give you 1 second. Who won? 1 second. She says the left. She's right. 70% of the time, you will be correct. You don't know these people. You know nothing about them. You see a quick picture in 1 second, nothing, and you will be correct of who won 70% of the time. The reason why that is, well, you know, people vote oftentimes based on what we see from people. Like how well we smile, how open our face is. Like beards didn't matter. You could have facial hair or not. You could have whatever. You could show teeth or not. But there's a genuineness to your face or not, or rather, there's a perceived genuineness to our face or not, right? And that influences elections. Okay, like but this actually holds for who you're going to go on a date with or not, right? Like 1 second, and you make a snap decision. I'll date that person. I'll date that person, right? And we are quick like this based on our facial expression. Okay. So, how we present matters, right? Here's another one for you. They did this interesting research study with, yes? Blanket, yes. Use like 2? They did this interesting research study on baseball players and their baseball cards, okay? So, they categorized them in 3 types of smile. There's the barely smile, actually, or none, or no smile, right? Because some guys don't smile. Picture Barry Bonds, no smile. Anyway, then there's the slight smile. Then there's the beaming smile. And they looked at these baseball players in history, moving forward, and they found that every category of smile, from no smile to small smile to big smile, they lived longer. They had longer average lives. The difference between the no smile versus the beaming smile was like a 6-year difference in their average lifespan. Big deal, just because they smiled, right? And so what that smile it suggests things about how they conduct their body and that matter in their longevity. Do you have a question?
I'm just saying that shows like how much energy a person usually has. They're smiling more. Aren't they usually more excited and kind of rambunctious, ready to go? Which wouldn't that mean they're more alive during the moment of sports?
It could,
I was
sure.
kind of thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like I've been going through like chemo and radiation a ton in the past 6 months, and the smiling has gone down a lot. My energy also has, but I'm happy. So like I kind of see that a little bit.
So managing your body's movement, right? That's a little snippet. Here's another thing. Now let's say I am walking through the park, and I've shared this analogy before, but like it's a good one. So let's say I'm walking through the park, and someone yells, "Look out, duck! Heads up!" Or whatever. Wait, now I will take a posture of like brace for impact. My head goes down. Mostly my body, my spine kind of goes into like a C shape. Maybe my arms go up. I'm going in a defensive posture, right? And if I get hit, I'll be better off because I'm in a braced, stabilized posture. Okay. So the key component to this posture is a closed down, head down type of position. Okay. So this closed head down kind of position. I'll let you see it from the side view here. This closed down position. Where do you think we see this? Is this a common position that you might see? Let's say every waiting room and every office around the country, and every like subway tunnel, and every like bus terminal, and most living rooms, people are on their phones. Okay, we are in a head down kind of braced, like a certain posture that can be when we're bracing for impact, but likewise, when we go like this, what happens is it actually pulls on our spinal cord on the inside of our spine. It creates a physical tensile force pulling in our spine to go down like this. Now that pulling on our spinal cord, what it does, can you picture those Chinese finger traps where you stick fingers on both ends and you pull out, and like the interwoven like basket, it squeezes as you pull apart and you can't get your thumbs out? So there's mesh, there's a type of like fibrous mesh around our spinal cord so that when we go like this and we create a pulling, it actually also squeezes the spinal cord itself. So in the moment of impact, our spinal cord is more stabilized so we don't get hurt as bad. However, that same downward head position pull done over and over and over again creates a squeezing on our spinal cord chronically. Does that sound like a healthy thing? Answer me no. No, it's not a healthy thing. Okay? It's not a healthy thing. Okay? Now what happens also when we go down like this, that pull, it also creates a pull on the brain itself, a physical pull on the brain, which changes some of the ways the brain works. It's been tested that what it also typically does is it will narrow our focus. Our peripheral vision will actually narrow. Okay? And our peripheral vision does act like an analogy to our imagination, to our thinking, to our open-mindedness. So going down like this, what it does is it increases our focus, but narrows our vision. It narrows our thinking, narrows our creativity. Okay? By doing that, what it's doing is it's creating a stimulation. Have you heard of the fight or flight system? Mm-hmm. So there's a fight or flight system and there's a relax system. Now again, those are like short-term analogous names. They're not completely accurate. They don't encapsulate the whole thing. But in short, there is a go system and there's a relax system. Okay? And doing this prolonged, creating that stimulation in our brain over and over again does trigger the it does trigger the go system. Okay? So if we are looking for the ability to disengage and relax, doing this is not going to help. It's going to harm our attempt at disengaging and relaxing. Okay? So think about, look at me in my posture, and instinctively you tell me which looks like I'm relaxing more. This look or this look. Okay? Can you see this as an open look? Can you see this as like a calming? You got me? You're creating a curvature in your spine, which actually, just the way the internal architecture works, releases a stressor, releases a pressure, a squeezing on the spinal cord itself, just by coming up with this. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't you know it, this position is created in our spine when we're a little baby and we are laid down on our tummy And as babies, we get tummy time. We begin to develop the curvature in our neck. Okay, so instinctively we create this, and then it takes our culture and our phone obsession to destroy it. Okay? So here's another thing about movement, using your body. They've done experiments with people, and they gave them like high commanding postures and measured their hormones. They gave them like weaker, low command, drawn in postures and measured their hormones. So what do they look like? So as an example, what they did is they swabbed someone's mouth for their saliva, and they did like cortisone and testosterone testing, okay? And so they just brought people in the rooms, tested their hormones. And then they randomly took a group of people over this way, and these people, they stood like this, right? They stood like this. And then they stood over the boardroom table, the long boardroom, and they stood at the head of the table, and they hovered over the boardroom table like this, right? And then other people, they had them go like this. They had them, do like that, like you're doing. They had them like close and cross and do this, right? And they remeasured their hormones. And wouldn't you know it, wouldn't you just know it, there was a 20% increase in testosterone.
My anxiety spikes whenever I will just stand like this. I'm like, why can I not get my composition back? And I have to loosen myself up. And it takes like a solid minute, but I'll get it back to normal. But I can't when I'm stressed.
A minute's not that long.
For a second.
You're learning your body. So that's a part of being a good captain of your ship, paying attention to your responses. We're going to talk about getting real with ourselves a little later. Okay? Just you got to get real, and that sounds like you are. You can't argue with reality. If you argue with reality, you'll lose the argument every time. Right? All right, so 20% up in testosterone. People who did this, 10% drop in testosterone. Okay? People who did like these numbers, the high postures, there was a 25% drop in cortisol. Right? People who did this, there were increases in cortisol, like 15% increase in cortisol. Okay? Stress hormones going up during smaller, weaker, contracted positions. You with me? Okay? That's just from a body position and our mind's interpretation of the body position. Okay? Just using your body. Now, here's another one for you. These positions like this is innate. This isn't our culture that teaches us this. How do we know that? Because people who've been blind their entire life, when they win a race, a Special Olympics race, they go like this. They've never seen anybody do that, but they do it. It's a victorious position. It's a strong, victorious position. And if you want to change how you are doing going into a situation, you're about to go into a meeting and you need to come with some strength, go to the bathroom first and stay in the stall and go like this. Okay? I got some of this information from a TED talk of Amy Cuddy. Right? I want to cite that. It's good to know where information comes from. Okay.
It works.
Yeah. What?
It works.
Heck yeah, it works. I've used it myself. Absolutely. Okay. So, bringing up your own hormones, the hormones you want, by moving your body. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So there's a few nuggets on movement. Okay. Movement, body positioning, body structure is one of the things I'm probably the deepest in my expertise. We could talk a lot about that, but we'll move on to the next thing. Now, this one's a shorter one. Now, this is the second of our 5 pieces. This is food. Now, food and your mood. It matters a lot, like a lot. Okay. And when I say food, I'm not just talking about if your food consumption. I'm also particularly talking about your gut health itself. Okay. Now, you've got billions and billions, actually trillions, of bacteria that live inside you and on you. And these are your good neighbors. You need them. If you didn't have them, you would be very sick and you'd probably die very quickly. And you need all of your good neighbors, your bacterial clingers. Okay. One thing I like to describe to gross people out, you've heard this before, my body, right, and on average, all of us, 5 pounds of me isn't actually me. It's actually my bacteria.
5 whole pounds?
5 pounds of bacteria in you and on you. Isn't that fantastic? Most of that's in our gut, but isn't that fantastic? It's so splendidly gross, but it's essential. Okay? Now, your bacteria that live in your gut, they are in close communication with you. Again, this is also a long conversation, which is going to be very truncated. They are in close contact with you, with your nervous system. They create chemicals that talk to your immune system. Your immune system talks to them. They create chemicals that directly go into neurotransmitters that talk to your brain, and you produce neurotransmitters that talk to them. Yes?
Sight.
Sight?
Sight, right. Usage.
Oh, sight, the communication? There's a lot. I'm not going to give you sight. There's lots and lots of those.
So ask Google.
What?
Google.
Ask Google. You'll find plenty. Okay? Neurotransmitter crosstalk between immune system and bacteria, nervous system, and so on. Okay? So, now, there's this cool video on NPR. Didn't I show you that video one time? Do you remember that? Don't remember that. Okay. Now,
Yes.
you remember that now? It just dropped in. Okay. All right. So, if you support the health of your internal gut bacteria, you will support your mood in a humongous way.
I will take one of my bacterial supplements.
You should. This is what I'm getting at. Okay.
All right.
Now, in my opinion, the crossroad between the most effective and most affordable kind of probiotic is homemade sauerkraut. Okay. So you can go to the stores. You can buy probiotic vitamins. You can buy probiotics. In fact, I take a probiotic. I do, because making your own homemade sauerkraut, I've gotten lazy. I've gotten weak and lazy. I don't make my own homemade sauerkraut as much. But if you go to, you can get organic sauerkraut with only the brine in different grocery stores, so you can probably buy it too. Like you can buy, I know we've got ours at Costco, and you could probably get it at Kroger Publix in the natural food section, maybe if you like.
I have one from Sprouts that's organic and everything, but it's like dill harvest flavored. Is that?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
As long as there's no preservatives.
Okay. Good.
Okay. So this is the thing. Now this was measured. I got this from Mercola.com. That's a very well-known health newsletter, okay, health website. He has information on that. I don't know the exact citation specifically, but it was this. They measured the bacterial content of common store-bought probiotics and the bacterial content of homemade sauerkraut. Now, that's just cabbage, shredded, stuffed into a jar with a bunch of salt and water, a little bit of water. It's mostly the cabbage juices, and you sit it in your cupboard for like a week or two, and it ferments, and then voila, you've got sauerkraut, right? And the short story there is actually it was Chinese who invented it first. Then the Mongolians, attacked a bunch of Chinese, and they discovered, hey, this cabbage thing, this sauerkraut thing, this is good. And the Mongolians went all the way across Asia, and then they attacked Eastern Europe, and eventually it found its way over to Europe, to Germany, and that's when it got its name of sauerkraut, and the Germans passed it around to the other Europeans. That's why we know it as sauerkraut, but originally it was Chinese, distributed by the Mongolians. There's some history for you, okay? So, there is 10 times the bacterial content, 10 times the good stuff in homemade sauerkraut at like 1% of the cost of a store-bought thing. Okay, so if you're really lazy, you want to buy it, fine. But if you want to be a little industrious, you can get a huge bang for your buck, homemade sauerkraut, okay? And that will change your mood. It will stabilize, help, improve, okay? Okay? Now, on top of bacteria and your probiotics, the other major player, in my opinion, on this is our body inflammation, okay? So if we've got a lot of gut inflammation, like if we're eating things that our body does not agree with, like common players these days is gluten, as an example. But anything our body doesn't really agree with can lend itself to some inflammation, okay? So the largest food that contributes to inflammation, in my opinion, is our sugar, our simple sugars, all of our carbs. Okay? It's the American diet. So that's sugar, that is honey, you guys. That is fruit juice. That is lots and lots of fruit, for instance. Like, for instance, if you let's say you have a fresh squeezed orange juice, nice glass of orange juice, okay? When you think about how many oranges it takes to give you that amount of orange juice, I mean, it might, like a glass like this, it could easily take 8 big oranges, easily, 8. So when was the last time you just sat down and gorged on 8 oranges straight? Peeled 8 oranges, ate them. You don't. We wouldn't do that, right? But in this consumption of juice, we're eating that equivalent. That is a lot of sugar in our body, okay? And then there's breads and pastas. I'm Italian. It hurts me to say, you got to cut back on all those pastas. But anyway, the point is simple carbs. That's just straight blood sugar. Your body converts it straight into blood sugar, which is an immediate. It's a big response of inflammation in your body. Okay. So if you want to lower the inflammation in your body, reduce the amount of sugars you're consuming. Okay. Eat more vegetables. Yeah.
Is there another way to reduce inflammation besides your diet?
Inflammation is a response. Typically, for us to get inflammation is typically the first response in healing. Okay? So short-term inflammation is a part of your healing process. Then the long-term inflammation is basically what we're talking about. And is there ways to lower long-term inflammation? There's tons of ways to lower long-term inflammation. Okay? There is your sleep, even your thinking matter in this. Your being active matters. Other supplements matter. Essential oils, there's great essential oil tools that also contribute to this. Food is, I think food and sleep are probably the most biggest contributors. If you're not sleeping well, you will amp up body-wide inflammation across the board. Okay? Did you have anything else you want to say or ask about that? Okay. All right. So that was our food section. Okay. So easy on the sugar, lower the inflammation, up with the probiotics. Okay. This is still related to your mood. Okay. Now I'm talking about sleep, which will transition us into the brain. Okay. That's our third of 5 categories. Brain health things. So things that affect our brain health directly. And sleep is the big deal here. Okay, sleep is a very big deal. Now, why is it a big deal? Here's the short of this. Okay, when we are awake and doing stuff, our brain needs fuel to operate. Every moving, living part in our body needs fuel. It needs blood sugar, it needs oxygen to work, right? Our brain needs lots of it. So our brain's consuming fuel. Now, just like any living thing, if it consumes fuel and it uses up the fuel, eventually, what does every living thing eats, and eventually, well, it does what? It poops. Now you're everyone, it poops. Okay?
It poops.
Yes. So your brain, it poops. Your brain poops.
Okay.
Okay?
Where though?
Metabolic waste is what happens. So there is metabolic waste. Imagine it like this. If you're bringing the analogy, think of it like pee. Your brain is peeing, and there's fluids building up in your brain. When you're awake, the fluids build up. When you're awake, the fluids do not drain out. Only when you sleep do the metabolic wastes, does your brain pee drain. So your brain flushes its metabolic waste when you sleep. The brain cleanses itself when you sleep. That is why if you do not sleep, what happens if you don't sleep?
You get sick
And then
or inflamed.
If you just don't sleep, you die. You can die from lack of sleep. They had experiments with rats. Big cage of rats over here, big cage of rats over here. One group of rats got no food. They didn't feed them. One group of rats, no sleep. They did not let them sleep. Which group died first?
No sleep.
No sleep.
Within a week.
I don't know how long it took. I think it was less than a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So if we're talking about fundamental essentials of life, sleep, it's not optional.
Okay.
You can die.
I've heard from friends like, oh yeah, I didn't sleep for 4 days. Okay, that sounds a little.
They hurt themselves. Maybe they did, but they hurt themselves. They really hurt themselves.
Okay.
Okay? So, sleep. Okay. It cleanses itself, your brain, when you sleep. Yes?
How? Through the lymphatic system?
Somewhat. You have ventricles. So your brain has a bunch of squishy folds of fat. That's what your brain basically is. A bunch of squishy folds of fat stuffed inside your cranium, right? But there are gaps in those squishy folds of fat. There are openings, ventricles. So fluids build up in there, and then they drain. But also, that's also CSF fluid. So it's not exactly that. But then also around the brain, in the lymphatic systems, and the circulatory systems. Your brain has a special circulation where it's called the blood-brain barrier. Ever heard of that? It's kind of famous. It's very, very, very selective. So chemicals can't get to your brain easily. And a lot of medication designers are like, how do we get our medication in the brain? They have to try to trick the blood-brain barrier. It's very tricky to do. So the blood-brain barrier, the vascular system, it absorbs and holds, lymph holds, and then when you finally sleep, flush. Okay? Don't ask me more details. All right.
And then
Now,
you pee.
what?
And then you pee.
Brain pee. Brain pee, and then eventually it goes through your circulatory system, and your kidneys do filter it all out, and then eventually it does add up into your bladder, and then you do pee. Eventually, okay? Eventually it does contribute to the actual pee. Okay. All right. Now, here's the chiropractic portion of our talk. Okay, I'm a chiropractor talking all this stuff. Why would I be a chiropractor talking all this stuff? Firstly, just personally and emotionally, I'm very interested in our own well-being and being emotionally healthy and happy. But also, chiropractic is relevant in this conversation. Okay? When you deal with any emotion, your nervous system is intimately involved in it. Your spinal cord, the bundle of nerves that track like your main fiber optic or phone line through your whole body, is centered through the bones of your spine. The bones of your spine protect it. Okay? And that bundle of nerves is the seat of the highest concentration of receptors for emotional molecules. Now let me explain that again. When we feel things, when we are dealing with emotions, when we are just living, okay, our brain makes think of them as little keys. Those are tiny little molecules, little neurotransmitters, but think of them like little keys. And these keys will interact with any place that has a lock for them. Okay, so they go floating through.
Neuropeptides.
Yes.
That's the word.
Yeah. They go floating through the bloodstream, through the lymph, through the body, and the place that has the most locks is your spinal cord. What that means is most emotional processing, most emotional feeling, and most of your body dealing with emotions is happening inside your spinal cord. So it's not like you feeling and dealing with emotions is not exactly centered in your brain. It's all over your whole body, but it's mostly centered in your spinal cord. So the health of your spine is intimately involved in how we feel, how we emote. It's centrally involved. Okay? Like on my own personal experience, like I would joke with my wife before I even knew this. I'm like, my cranky bone's out. I felt a tension in the base of my neck, right? T1, C7, right? And my cranky bone's out. She's like, oh, anyway, but getting that adjusted made an obvious difference. I had parents regularly bring to me their little kids because they are a cranky mess. So you adjust these kids, and the parents always were like, oh, thank you. It was very noticeable, readily different. Getting a kid adjusted, their mood improved. Okay. I have stories of people being violent to their family, and they start getting adjusted, and they are not violent with their family anymore.
Should I have chiropractors in that?
Yeah. What I have is a little bit of research of my own too. I will tell you a short story. The New York City had a bad crime like back in the 80s, and they got Giuliani as the new mayor. And Giuliani's like, we're gonna take care of crime in our city. So he hires this new police chief, and a chief of all police, and then they go about, we're gonna make New York safer, right? So they hired a whole bunch of cops, and they changed their philosophy, their perspective. Each police precinct was judged in how many reports they filed, how many arrests were made, how many different details, all these different details. There were a bunch of metrics of what they were doing to do their job, all these different things. So this new chief comes along, he's like, we are not police report, we are not report writers, we are not this, we are not that, we're cops. Our job is to lower crime rate. That is now your only metric. Is the crime rate in your precinct going down? Good. Is the crime rate in your precinct not going down? You're out, I'm gonna get somebody in here who will lower. That was his approach, and it worked. And they did all kinds of different philosophy and all these different things, but the point is they measured something, the thing that mattered, right? And so that story really inspired me. So I'm like, I'm a chiropractor and I measure stuff in my business. I measure stuff. But what am I doing? What's my purpose? What's my job? I want people's lives to be better. I want them to have a better life. I want the people I take care of to live a better life. And I'm realizing I don't really directly measure that. So I changed that and I went about measuring it. And I got this well-being survey. And it asked questions about someone's physical well-being, like how's your tummy? How's your digestion? How's your physical aches and pains? How do you feel in the morning? Questions like that. Emotional questions like are you happy? Are you dealing with this? How are you with your relationships and your sex life and stuff like that? It was questions about their enjoyment of their life. You know, how connected do you feel to the people that matter in your life? How much sense of peace do you have? How much openness do you have? Like those types of things, right? Even asked questions about quality of life, not just enjoyment of life, but all their sets of questions, right? And so every new person I would see got that survey, and they'd fill it out. And roughly every month, as I'm working on them, they repeated the survey. And so I began to collect a lot of information over people being asked, bottom line, is your life better or not? And lo and behold, guess what? People's lives were better. And here's some measurement I did. So what I did is I gathered up all the stuff I had at that time, okay? And what I found was, of the people who I had 1 month of care for, like one follow-up, on average, all the people who had 1 month of care, they had 5% improvement in their overall well-being, okay? I mean, like, I know German engineers would do a backflip. A 5% increase? I know, because I went to school with a German engineer. He worked for Mercedes. And I actually had this Japanese engineer, and we were doing other things. He's like, 5%? That's fantastic, right? So 5% for people who are real, like, number hounds is a big deal. For us common folk, oh, okay, 5%, that's cool. Right? That's still 5% better in someone's enjoyment of their own life, and that's in 1 month, you guys. 1 month. I had people who came 2 follow-ups. They came longer. It was about 2-ish months. After 2 months of work on these people, they had an 8% increase in their well-being. And then I had a group of people, after I measured anybody who it was at 3 months or more, is just the way I clumped all the data. 3 months or more was a 19% increase in their well-being. Point is as someone continued to get care, as they continued to work on themselves, invest in the health of their spine, the central bundle of nerves that is the seat of our emotional processing, as they worked on their spine, over time, their well-being went up and up and up. Okay? So, as a chiropractor, that's one takeaway here, you guys. Get adjusted. Get chiropractic care. It makes a difference in your emotions, in your life. Okay? In addition to the movement we talked about, and the sleep we're talking about, and the food we're talking about. All right? Okay. Now, that is our category number 3. Now, category number 4. Let me take a peek. Yes. I'm still debating about which of these 2 categories I want to finish with. They might kind of blend together. I'll tell you, we'll go with this one. Your thinking, okay? Now, I wanted to share an interesting story from a movie. I'll try not to give away the movie too much. It's an older movie, but not that old. It's called Inception. Yes, we know the movie?
I like that movie.
Yeah, it's a cool movie, okay? Now, for those at home, I don't want to necessarily ruin the movie, but there's a takeaway, 2 takeaway scenes that I want to talk about. The first scene is there's like this main character in the movie. He's this young executive, and his vile curmudgeon of a father has just died, and he's the CEO of this major multi-billion-dollar company. Okay, and the son, who's like this bitter, hurt son because the father was such a jerk his entire life, he's telling the story. And he's there at the grumpy old father's bedside as he's dying. And the story he's relating to somebody else is, even though he was sick and could barely talk, his dying words as he looked at me was, disappointed. He looks at his son, and that's his last dying words, disappointed, right? And so now the son gets to deal with that. Like, my a-hole of a father, he had enough strength to tell me one last time he's disappointed in me, right? And so that's how the movie kind of starts. And there's lots of stuff that happens in the movie. And of course, the plot of the movie is like, you can like, these guys try to like go into his mind and like try to like do stuff. You guys remember the movie, right? And he tries to defend his mind. All this stuff happens. There are cool twists in the stories. But what happens is, in essence, at the end, he has a shift in his perspective. Now, part of the movie helps him shift his perspective, but the shift in perspective is, again, this character realizes his father wasn't disappointed that he wasn't more like him. In his last dying words, his father was trying to say that he's disappointed that you tried to be like him. He wasn't himself. And it was a well-acted scene. What the actor in the character portrays like this lightness, this weight has been taken off of him. And even though there's no difference to what occurred, he now saw it differently, in a different perspective. Okay, that's to intro this fourth idea around our thinking. Our thinking is crucial. Our thinking is crucial when it comes to our own emotional growth, our own emotional resilience. I want to talk a little bit about, here's an example here. Soldiers who go through combat, American soldiers who go through combat, even European soldiers, but this is Americans I know of. American soldiers that go through combat and have had to kill people. And in the heat of combat, with their comrades next to them, fighting a battle, and they kill someone, there's this intensity, and there's this savageness, and there's this joy in doing it. And they come back to their civilized country, in their civilized neighborhood, with all these people that they love, and they have this tormented shame and guilt about feeling joyful about killing somebody. One of the ways these people capture resilience, can come back from that shame, is it turns out they come to know they're not alone. How do they know this? Here's an example of this. What I mean by this is actually it's a common thing. There's no word for it in English, but there's tribes in New Guinea, and they still live in a very minimal technology kind of way, primitive kind of way. I don't know if calling something primitive is so socially correct anymore, but in a primitive kind of way. They got spears, they live in huts, and they run around and they hunt for a living. That's their job. And these two rival tribes, they go at each other, and they're with extreme violence, and they kill each other for hunting grounds and whatever else, for whatever wrong you did to my family one generation ago, whatever. And they talk. There's a word. I don't know the word. It's in some New Guinean language, but it's such a common experience. They have a word that means that specific, the joy, the savage joy of attack and defeating your enemy, And so it's the point is that it's still a human experience. They didn't lose their humanity, right? So knowing they weren't alone, knowing it's a part of a human experience, knowing that gives someone permission to not feel quite so, not have the shame over it, okay? The other thing, just personally, some shifts in my own thinking, as an example. I want to give you roadmaps in thinking shifting here, okay? This past, in the ballpark of 2 years of my life, not the most recent 6 months, but let's say jump back 6 months, the following preceding 18 months in my life have probably been some of the most emotionally challenging and difficult and painful in my life. it's involved a lot of strife and conflict in my own household with my own son and in my family life, right? And one of the things that I gained the tiniest sliver of peace from was this idea that anything that is stressful, anything that's agonizing or painful or challenging, necessarily comes with it meaning. Like, if something meant nothing to you whatsoever, it would not be stressful to you at all. Okay? So stress, its prerequisite is meaning. Now, you can have meaning without stress. You can have meaningful things in your life, meaningful experiences, meaningful pursuits that aren't stressful. But if you are experiencing stress, it means it matters to you. Okay? And you would not want to wish away the meaning in your life. So it's like this great challenge and pain I have, what I've recently lived through, what I actually took some comfort in is knowing it's because it matters so darn much to me. This a lot's at stake. It really means something deeply to me. And I'm pursuing something rich in purpose. So it gave me perseverance. It gave me a willingness to keep going. You follow me on this? Is there anything you want to say about it?
I
You don't
just
have to.
line up with it. You know,
So, search your own life and find, it probably won't be hard. The things that have been most stressful, the thing that's something that matters, that's at stake. Something that's the most challenging. And make sure, very deliberately and consciously, tying and intertwining in your mind, making it very clear that what this means to me. You know, because when you have that, you will have fuel to keep going. It will also perhaps even fuel you to keep finding creative solutions, finding your way to keep going through it. Okay? Because you know, sooner or later all challenges end. There was another story I like. This is actually, strangely, I got this story from Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln tells this story, right? And it was this. He's like, there was an ancient man of Babylon, an ancient king of Babylon. And he tasks his wise men to go out and find a truth that is true under all conditions, at all times, all circumstances, and all contexts. Find me a constant truth. And so they go, and they travel for years, and they come back. And when they all have come back, and they report back to this great king of Babylon, they say, we've found a truth, a statement of truth, a concept of truth that is true in all conditions, all times, all ways, all contexts. That truth is, this too shall pass. So, capture your meaning in it, feel your meaning in it, and keep going, and you will get through it. And you'll have growth waiting for you on the other side of it. So, perspective. I'll give you this last story on perspective, on thinking. Okay, it's a story I've told before. A few of you will recognize it, but I worked previously at another office, and I had a person who worked with me, and I worked there for 8 years, and we all shared an employee bathroom. Okay, and we used the bathroom, and inevitably, whenever this other person had gone and went and whatever, and the toilet paper was out, and you replace the toilet paper roll, right? She would never replace the toilet paper roll on the rolly thingy, whatever that thingy is. She never replaced it. She just stuck the roll on the thingy, never replaced it. And you know, when you're in close contact, like teasingly, she was like my office wife, you know, like that whatever. Like she was my assistant, and I loved her dearly. She had all various annoying qualities, this and that, but like still, we worked together great. But it's like, bah! Why doesn't she just replace the toilet paper roll? You know, there's little things when you're around somebody for a long time, you get the little irks, right?
Like toothpaste. Like, why do you squeeze from the bottom and the middle? Like, yeah. That kind of-
Right. So those little things. Why didn't you do it? So I basically spent 7 years and 11 months going every time I go in the bathroom and she left that thing there. Okay, and I would do it. Why can't she do it? And this is not a compliment to me, but it took me 7 years and 11 months because I only worked there for 8 years. Because my last month, it finally dawned on me. This wonderful woman had rheumatoid arthritis. And she couldn't squeeze the thing and push it in. Her hands didn't let her. And I never clued in on that. I just assumed, what the hell? Why is she doing it? She's lazy, she doesn't think of it? What the hell? No, she couldn't. And so I spent nearly 8 years being annoyed for no reason whatsoever. And that shift in perspective immediately, like retroactively, changed all those 8 years worth of annoyance to
Makes you think about other stuff.
compassion. Yeah, it made me think about it. Absolutely did. You know? And so this brings me into the fifth, which is about our social connections, the people in our lives. Okay, now we're talking about being healing and growing and being resilient in our emotions. The people in your life matter the most. Okay? If I had to give you one piece of health advice, like now I'm a chiropractor, and if I could tell you get regular chiropractic care or have good friendships, and if I wanted to give you advice that meant you would have less diseases and you'd live longer, I'd tell you have good friendships. And I'm a chiropractor. I make my money, I make my living off adjusting people. If I were to tell you eat good food, eat good healthy food, or have good friendships, it would be friendships, you guys. If I were to say go exercise, be regular exercise, or have good friendships, it's friendships. Maybe sleep is the one thing that could trump friendships. Okay, in terms of like the major players, in terms of what contributes to like us being healthy, right? Your connection, having love in your life, having support in your life, and giving love and support in your life matter tremendously. Okay, so here's this one little shade difference from that story with this woman and her hands is, you know, when you're talking about connecting with people and you're talking about like being able to grow a resilience in your own emotions, it's also how you treat people that matter. Now, here's this key thing. There is an important difference between, let's say someone is going through a hard time. You could have pity for someone or you could have compassion for someone. And there is a subtle shade difference between the two. Now, I want to define it. If you see the person and go, oh man, it's tough. I'm so sorry. It's terrible. Oh, right? But there's sort of a divorce between seeing yourself in that situation and that person. Well, that's bad for them. Gosh, right? That's still pity. When it turns into compassion is when you can see yourself in that situation. If you could imagine yourself walking in their shoes, like, you know, it could happen to me too. You know, I'm not above that situation. We're all just people. And like me, I know that you're dealing with something. Also like me, like we've fallen down. We need to get back up, right? Seeing yourself in the situation is what engenders compassion. Okay? It's a powerful tool. Yeah.
Actually, I was meditating a month ago when I was really struggling with some problems with family. And these short, powerful words came to me. I am you, now speak. Just shift your entire perspective to the other person and just start over.
Cool. That was a good blessing for you, I'm sure. Cool. Have you ever heard of a town called Rossetto, Pennsylvania?
Somehow, yeah.
It is a bit north of Philadelphia. It's a bit in from New Jersey. It's in eastern Pennsylvania. And the story of this town is it was like kind of a mountainous area, and some Italian immigrants moved to the area, and they found, man, this is similar to the hills we had in Italy, and we know that there's like good quarry. There's like slate mining slate quarrying they could do. They're familiar with what they did in Italy. So one guy writes back, hey everybody, we got a great place here, come on. So a whole bunch of Italian immigrants came and they moved into this town, and they started working hard there, living there, a bunch of Italian immigrants, right? Now, adjacent towns had Irish and German and others, and so these adjacent towns were not the new immigrants, and they didn't care for a bunch of Italian immigrants, and so they didn't socialize much. So this group was very isolated. So they lived in this mountainous area, and they worked really hard, and they didn't intermingle with anybody else, and they just had their own little Italian little village, Roseto, Pennsylvania. And suddenly stumbling, one medical doctor who goes in there from time to time and helps them out, talks to another medical doctor at one bar one night. This is the early 50s. He's like, it's weird. These guys, there's no heart attacks. In the 1950s, there were a lot of heart attacks. We had the male death rate of heart attacks was very high in the 1950s, and there was 0 in Roseto, Pennsylvania. They're like, no, come on. He's like, no, really, seriously, I don't think it is. He's like, really? We gotta take a look at that. So they actually designed this thing, and so later on, in the 60s, they went in there and they scoured death records, and they looked and they looked and they looked, and they made this big deal. There was this horde of researchers that came and looked and looked and looked, and sure enough, the overall death rate actually in Roseto was half that of the rest of the country, neighboring areas. They looked at places like a neighboring town that breathed the same air, worked the same mines, ate the same food, had the same schedule, drank the same water. And this group had twice the death. This group, half. What the heck? And so they looked closer, and they looked closer and closer and closer. What they found too, this community has 0 crime. 0. It also happened to have 0 relief and social relief stuff like food stamps and government aid and Social Security. There's 0. So what they began to put together, this little view, is, wow, what happens is every household has 3 generations. Grandparents, parents, kids, every house. They all go for walks after Sunday dinner together. They all work together. They all play together. They look out for each other. They watch out for each other. It was a tight-knit community. Very tight-knit community. Some people didn't do well with money. Some people did really well with money, but the people who did well with money didn't show it. It was taboo. You did not buy a new car. You didn't do fancy stuff. Everyone kept on the same keel, right? So it's there was no consumerist pressure. Point is, they weren't very American. They were very small town Italian, very much so. Tight knit, right? The community loved and supported each other. Now, granted, a nosy neighbor is still a nosy, annoying neighbor, but they still looked out for you. They were nosy as well as looked out for you, right? Mm-hmm. And so this community, this great mass network of social connection and support, this love and connection they all have with each other, what did it mean? It mean people didn't die of heart attacks. That's what it meant. Their emotional connection with each other helped them live longer and healthier, right? So, your investment in your people matters. One of my own challenges, as I was describing, the preceding 18 months being amongst the hardest emotionally in my entire life, one of the things that made it so tough is one of my best friends had a new baby, and he wasn't around, available. He'd go work, go home, right? There's no more hanging out with Aaron, right? One of my other best friends moved to Ohio. No more hanging out with Aaron, right? Another one of my best friends got busy with work, right? So I have a rich group of people to lean on, and they all were not available, right? So I was more alone than usual, in addition to my hardship. So it made it harder, okay? And what made it better is I had to grow more network, my buddy who had the baby, well, he's resurfaced again. I see him from time to time again, My buddy from Ohio, he came back to visit. My buddy who I didn't see very often, I started seeing him more often, I invested more in my loving connections and people around me, to lean on people. You know what I mean? Like the stoic no, I'll handle it myself, is not the way to go. Okay? Is not the way to go. I talked to you about sleep and food earlier. Here's one for you. Who is more likely to die? The lonely person or the depressed person? You are correct. Loneliness is far more toxic than depression. Got me? Okay? So, the thing that that is also, like, one last part of that is how much substantive conversation you can do. What does that mean? It means, like, getting real, right? It means, what does that mean? It means being vulnerable. It means being honest. I learned one gift I've learned from my own ups and downs and knocks is that growth only occurs with truth. If you share your truth and you are gifted with the person that you're with who also shares their truth, it creates growth. If you are censoring, if you are editing, if you are holding back, it likewise holds back growth. So the more true, now don't be mean. Okay? Truth doesn't mean mean. Truth means truth. Okay? Also, it can mean your own truth, being vulnerable. Like being real about yourself with people. Okay? That grows you. It grows the person who gets to witness it. And then they get to share. So now I'm also not saying be vulnerable with anybody. Be vulnerable with people who have earned the privilege of your vulnerability. You know what I mean? If you don't have people in your life that have earned the privilege of your vulnerability, then get new people in your life. Okay? You can recycle people out. You're allowed. Okay? You are very similar to the people you hang out with most. So if you don't like the people you hang with most, that's also reflecting who you're being. So you have permission to kick people to the curb. Do it nicely. Okay? But my point is be discretionary with the quality of the person you're going to keep in your life, and be real. And this isn't something that I know you didn't know, but sometimes it's helpful to hear it. When we articulate the idea, it's now an idea that we can actually build off of. Okay? So there are your 5 components and tools. Talked about your brain, talked about your movement, your food, and your thinking, and your socialness. Is that 5?
Yes.
I think that's safely 5. All right. Is there any parting questions that I want to add to our video? Okay. Thank you very much.
I don't remember them now.
It's okay. It's okay. That'll be all. Good night, everybody. Am I pressing it?